It's game time, people. Are you ready? I don't know if you're ready. I don't know if I'm ready. It's my nerd world, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Jon Justice. And you know what just happened? It's amazing. The official Star Wars account, like the official one, like Disney Lucasfilm, they just announced the trailer for The Rise of Skywalker. Coming on Monday, finally! All right, I'm giddy, people, and I got a lot to talk about this week. The teaser trailer, which isn't offering much, did just drop. Talk a little bit about that. Got a lot of news to cover as well. There's an extensive article from Wired Magazine kind of getting everybody up to speed on the latest news to come out of Star Wars. A few things that we've talked about before, but we'll tread over that ground again and add some new commentary. Speaking of commentary, Daisy Ridley is talking about Reylo. J.J. Abrams is talking about the end of the saga and what it means. We have so much to get to. We have release dates for The Mandalorian. All right, I'm going to shut up now and make this whole thing official. Welcome to the Star Wars podcast, and please, as always, support the show. Download the Blaster app. Definitely want you to download the Blaster app this time around because I'm really hoping to hear from a lot of you and your thoughts on this trailer using TROS trailer come Monday. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And, of course, as always, you can support the show by purchasing copies of my science fiction space opera novel series, EMBARK, Book 1 and 2, available now. All right, I said we weren't going to waste any time, and here I am wasting time. Let's get to it already.
We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight. We'll always be with you. No one's ever really gone.
Nothing will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you? I'm no one.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you.
My nerd world.
Just let it in.
Oh, I'm letting it in, Maz. I am letting it in. Welcome to the show. I'm giddy. Man, it's been a long journey. I can't believe it's going to be October 21st. We're finally going to get the full trailer for this saga film. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Jon Justice. I don't even know where to start. So we'll start here. So earlier this week, after weeks of speculation, Daniel Reichman, well-known pop culture movie news dropper. Is that even a thing? Someone who breaks news and is a reliable source on Twitter tweeted this out on October 16th. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker trailer date. It's official. The trailer for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker on October 21st, and they'll announce tickets going on sale for on the 19th, which is today, and it just happened for the 21st. So 5 p.m. Pacific time for the ticket sale. That's 7 to 8 o'clock PST for the trailer, depending on the for the game. Yeah, so if you're on the West Coast, you can probably expect tickets to go on sale Monday, right around 5 o'clock, and then probably around, for me, you're looking at 6 or 7 o'clock here Central Time, and then East Coast Time, you're looking at 7 to 8. They usually put the tickets on sale ahead of time, even before the trailer drops, even though they say they're not going to go on sale until the trailer drops, but that rarely happens anymore because these theaters need to go and coordinate. I've already set my reminder from AMC. I've had good luck getting tickets in the past, did for The Force Awakens, did for The Last Jedi, and hopefully I'm going to for The Rise of Skywalker because I have family coming to town specifically to watch this final movie in the in the Star Wars saga. So, as expected, Disney has launched the teasers doing that thing with my finger for The Rise of Skywalker. 2 of them so far have come out. Not a lot to them. The first one just showed a new clip, a shot facing the Millennium Falcon cockpit that's got our heroes in it. So it's got Finn, Poe, Rey, and Chewbacca in looking happy, like the group is happy inside the cockpit. Clearly, this is taken from the trailer, and just a quick assessment on that. I could be wrong. We'll find out Monday. But seeing that was the first image shown from the trailer, I wonder if that's going to be sort of an opening theme of the trailer, is these 4 individuals going off on a journey. We've seen J.J. Abrams talk quite a bit about that. This is more of an adventure film, right? And these 4 individuals are together on this journey. It's interesting because that shot, for what it's worth, has not been mentioned in any of the descriptions of what this trailer is supposed to be, specifically from Jason Ward at MakingStarWars.net. And that trailer and the smiling, or that teaser, that little 5-second teaser of them entering the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, looking very sort of happy, content, going on this adventure, fun adventure. If that's from the trailer, that certainly doesn't fit the vibe of what was described. Now, tones can change throughout trailers, there's no doubt about that, but reading way too much into it, if that's the beginning of the trailer, that already pushes back against the beginning description of the trailer of what we've heard before. It's a possibility it changes, but ultimately, Monday is going to be, in my opinion, the sort of deciding factor on how much legitimacy we put on as fans those leaks that have been coming from Reddit. So here's the deal. We got a lot more show to get to. A lot of news to talk about, like I talked about at the top of the show. Really excited to continue my journey to The Rise of Skywalker with my Attack of the Clones viewing tonight. I'll get into a little bit more of that coming up. But the Blaster app. Now, you've heard me talk about it. I'm trying to help promote this for the guys that made it. I was a part of this whole thing when the idea came about. And so people, if you're wondering where my talk of Blaster comes from, it's because of my personal interest within the app and the help and development that I gave to the app in promoting it. But the app was designed for just things like this. This is why the app came about. If you haven't downloaded the Blaster app yet, go to the App Store and do that. And use the hashtag TROSTrailer. And let me know your thoughts. And I'll talk in detail, again, about this later on in the show. But I'm going to be posting blasts throughout the day today as these teasers drop. And certainly that will be how you will hear my first thoughts about the trailer on Monday. And then I'll do a full review of the trailer on Tuesday, because it'll be late at night on Monday and I'll need to get some sleep. But if you want to hear some of my commentary and reaction to all the footage that'll be released between now and Monday as they tease this, get the Blaster app. Be sure to go into the settings and follow me, Jon Justice, and my Nerd World. I'll be posting on both. And be sure you make sure your settings to get the notifications. It's all free. It takes just a second to show up. And then also follow me on Twitter and Facebook, Jon Jon Justice, and at My Nerd World. On Blaster, it's just My Nerd World, but on Twitter, I'm at My Nerd World. And if you're interested to hear my commentary or to know when new footage has dropped, I will be posting these blasts as that footage comes out because I have all my notifications on. Really looking forward to the next 48 hours that we're all going to be going through and getting this new footage and the talk about Star Wars and the commentary around it and the excitement building. This is going to be a really, really fun time. And I can't wait to hear your responses to everything coming out, and certainly after that trailer comes out on Monday. As always, feel free to comment as we get into the rest of the show. This week we have a lot of ground to cover, but man, I'm excited. We're heading into the home stretch now. We're going to get our first sort of lengthy footage from this movie that we're all so hungry for. I cannot wait. I'm a giddy Star Wars fan, and I want to do nothing but watch Star Wars. But I'm going to hold to my plan, and Attack of the Clones is tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it because I love that movie. All right, let's get to some other items this week.
I've seen this raw strength only once before. It didn't scare me enough then. It does now.
All right, so like I mentioned at the top of the show, I do have a number of different articles and talking points I want to get to on the show this week before the special trailer release and reaction and commentary show that'll be coming out most likely on Tuesday. I don't know if I'll have the opportunity, as I mentioned, to be able to get to it on Monday night when the trailer drops. I definitely will be recording some audio blasts. So again, if you follow me on Twitter, well, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at @TheMyNerdWorld or at Jon Justice, or download the Blaster app, like I mentioned, is being worked on for Android, but get it in the App Store for iPhone. It's free. Search for Blaster app, both words together. Download it, create your profile, follow me, make sure you go into your settings and take care of all the settings. And hopefully, I would really love to be able to grab some of that audio from you, posting your reaction using the Blaster app. And really, if you haven't used it yet, it's really simple. Once you make your profile, it just takes a couple of minutes. It's faster than Twitter. It's pretty user-friendly to go in there and record audio just right into your phone. And that's what I do. I basically I load up the recording page. I put in the details I want. I mark that I want to put it on Facebook and Twitter. Add a picture, and then hit record, and then hit stop, and then post. It's really that simple, and I do that right from my phone. So I will be putting out a blast as soon as the trailer is over with my reaction and watching it, and also my reaction immediately afterwards. So use that hashtag TROS trailer. Use that hashtag on Twitter so that other people can go and find your audio as well. I really hope that I hear from a lot of you guys. I want to be able to listen to your reaction and hopefully play it back on next week's show. One of the things that I was going to be doing on the show this week, I decided not to. And it really is just because I've got these articles that I want to get to, the news items of the week. I want to kind of clear the deck. And this particular topic I know is going to be somewhat controversial and may require its own bonus podcast, because I'm not sure that I want to spend a lot of one show on it. And for those that haven't heard it yet, it is the audio from a podcast where the voice of Kanan Jarrus on Rebels, the actor and voice actor, Freddie Prinze Jr., goes on this profanity-laden rant about the fandom menace. Doesn't mention the fandom menace directly, but he goes on this rant basically pushing back against that and presents some really interesting perspectives as an individual, as he says in the audio, that was taught by Filoni and who was taught by George Lucas, so he knows what he's talking about. I really enjoyed the video. I wish that he hadn't laced it with so much profanity. I'm not a prude by any stretch, but unfortunately, I've heard a lot of commentary around this piece of audio, and all you have to do is go to YouTube. Again, I will tackle it on a show, just not this week. But if you go to YouTube and search Freddie Prinze Jr. Star Wars, it'll be one of the first ones that pops up. I really wish that he hadn't cursed as much as he did, even though it was very expressive and very genuine, because a lot of people who, for what it's worth, I feel like could have benefited from hearing what he had to say that may be negative on Disney doing Star Wars movies, or more specifically The Last Jedi, or all of it. I've already heard them using his profanity as an excuse to push back on it. Like, well, if he hadn't cursed so much, I don't know, maybe it's just kind of a bummer. It's kind of a bummer. And perhaps those people wouldn't have been reached anyways. But like I said, not to keep repeating myself, but I will be tackling that particular issue on a episode, maybe a bonus episode, sometime in the next at least 2 weeks. I won't let it go for too long. All right. So with that out of the way, there's a couple of interesting articles that popped up this week that I want to dive into, and then we'll do some listener feedback, and we'll see if we can kind of move through this quickly. Again, there's going to be a lot of audio coming out of my nerd world in the next 4 or 5 days, and so I don't want to overwhelm you, and want to make sure that I'm giving you the best stuff. So let's start here. Wired Magazine put an article out a few days ago, basically running down the latest within Disney Star Wars with some bullet point headlines and some details underneath. And there's a few things in here that I can spike in of some other news items that they don't cover. But I really thought some of the things they talked about were interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. So from Wired, it's their Cantina Talk. The Rise of Skywalker won't retcon The Last Jedi. J.J. Abrams won't try to backpedal any of the events in The Last Jedi. With just a few months until the release of The Rise of Skywalker and a couple of weeks until the debut of The Mandalorian, there has clearly been an awakening in the Force. Even Marvel boss Kevin Feige is getting in on the action and working on his own Star Wars film. If you've been wondering what's been happening in terms of Star Wars news over the past couple of weeks, the answer is a lot. Don't believe us? Read on, young Padawans. Okay, so the first bullet point headline is, don't expect too much in terms of spoilers from the merchandise, and we kind of already know this already. Triple Force Friday happening just last week with the merchandise from Star Wars, Mandalorian, and Jedi Fallen Order hitting the shelves. If the live-streamed product reveal and the amount of merch in the storms seems somewhat underwhelming, there's a reason for that. The head of global marketing at Hasbro said to Cinema Blend, we have clear conversations about what can come out and when, and what needs to stay under wraps. We work around things with that in mind, at least from a Hasbro standpoint. The product display is maybe 30 to 35% our full line. Hasbro isn't alone on this, with Lucasfilm's head of merchandise, Paul Southern, adding, the key here is when we release products a couple of months in advance of the film, we're focusing on a very select group. There are products you're not seeing, and that won't be seen until after the movie comes out. Even the characters that we are releasing, we're not really giving you much narrative for them. Short version, don't go looking for spoilers from the toys just yet. That's our job. All right, so let me spin off of this for a moment. A couple of different things I want to touch on. One is there's a rumor going around that Disney and Lucasfilm, specifically Lucasfilm and J.J. Abrams, have been testing 8 endings for the film. Okay. I don't put a lot of stock in this. I feel like that is pretty specific information that I don't think the general public would be aware of. You know, one thing to say multiple endings, but 8. The thing that I landed on with this is I can't imagine Lucasfilm and Disney, I can't imagine them going and doing any screenings for this movie, even with signing, non-disclosure agreements. Too much is going to get out. Now, maybe that's the source of some of these leaks, right? Maybe because they've been screening this movie for people, and some people have gone and broken their NDA. And that's the thing about it, too, is that I wonder, what can they do for individuals? Rather, if you're signing an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement for a film, there's 100 ways to get around that and never be caught passing information on third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth hand. I mean, unless individuals were being sat down watching specific versions of a film with very specific details changed from each and every one, in which case things won't go and add up. Now, that also, makes a little bit of sense, right? I mean, if you broke it up into subgroups of 5 people, and then leak emerged that went and had some specifics to one particular viewing by those 5 people, then you could narrow down, who went and did the leaking. I do think that is a possibility. I know that Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net has talked about the trailer and how he knows specifics of the trailer that are being changed that he won't mention, but gave a general overview of what the trailer was going to be. That might be why the Jedi Paxis leak on Reddit, for those that have been following that, has been changing and updating so often. I do believe that there is a portion of those leaks put together by Paxis that are true. I think the core of what this story is supposed to be based off those leaks is probably true. I don't think anybody really knows how the thing is going to end. And we have seen some evidence of that, because if those other leaks are true, and I think that come, not so much today, but when we get the full trailer here in the next 48 hours, I think our questions are going to be answered as to whether any of those particular leaks are true. I also can't help but wonder that maybe those endings aren't necessarily being tested by an audience sitting in front of a screen and watching. Maybe they are using Reddit. Maybe they've got a handful of individuals who have, and I know this sounds like conspiracy stuff, but we know this has happened in the past, and I'll explain in just a moment. Maybe these leaks have been put out there, and these multiple endings have been leaked intentionally to people like Jason Ward or to people like Jedi Paxis, in order to get a fandom gauge based off the responses on Reddit. I pray that's not the case. And the reason I pray that's not the case is because I really appreciate it when an artist can do what an artist wants to do. I understand, like, I have beta readers for my EMBARK novels. Those beta readers are there to help me go and make sure I'm pointing out any sort of continuity errors. I've got one friend, Ken King, who did a fantastic job on EMBARK Treasure in Darkness Book 2 in detailing some inconsistencies and perhaps some areas where I could be more specific and some things that perhaps didn't work the way that I had hoped that they were. He was fantastic about it. All my beta readers were great. I had made the decision early on that despite what my beta readers say, unless there is something glaringly obvious that needs to be changed, the core of the story is going to be what I wrote, because I want to be genuine and true to the story that I want to tell. And I hope that J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio are writing a story that they genuinely want to tell, that they feel is the best wrap-up to these 9 films. I really hope that if they are doing something like I mentioned, of leaking things intentionally, reading comments on Reddit, having focus groups, I really hope it's because they haven't specifically decided on which ending that they like the most, and they just want a bit of focus and maybe some input that can help guide their final decision. And as I said, and one more quick point, and we'll move on to the next item from this Wired article. Oh, actually, no, I have one more thing to add. I forgot something really big to add. And I'll move off. I gave my thoughts on Jedi Paxis. Let me go here. In an article that I'm going to share with you here in a moment from Entertainment Weekly that came out today, J.J. Abrams dives into this idea of what this movie needs to be and what this movie has to accomplish in The Rise of Skywalker. And that really got me considering an idea that I haven't heard floated around all that much, and it really does center on Anakin Skywalker returning in some way, shape, or form. And I know that the end of Return of the Jedi, and I have no details about this, by the way. I haven't seen any leak that's included any Anakin whatsoever. But if I were J.J. Abrams, that's the one thing that I would be hiding all along. If you're going to bring back Palpatine and not hide it, then you bring back Anakin at the end of this thing and you hide it. I was just talking to my wife, Melinda, about this. So I found out this week that apparently in China, in films, they don't like ghosts appearing in films. That is a cultural thing in China they don't like. And there's some speculation that the reason why the Force ghost in The Last Jedi of Yoda, spoiler alert, wasn't completely transparent. If you compare that Force ghost to the Force ghosts at the end of Return of the Jedi, certainly Obi-Wan Kenobi in both, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, you can still see some colors in them, right, in what they're wearing, but they were see-through, and the blue glowy around them was pretty prominent. The Yoda in The Last Jedi isn't. I mean, you cannot see through the Yoda, and there is enough blue around him to represent he's a Force ghost. But we also know that he can connect through the Force. You know, he powered the lightning to come from the sky to light the tree on fire. He ends up bonking, Luke in the nose with the cane. It's not like we haven't seen something like that before. Obi-Wan Kenobi sits down as a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi. But I landed on this idea of, and we'll get into a little bit more of this with the details that J.J. Abrams lays out in this Entertainment Weekly article. But I got this idea that at the end of this film, if it is a situation where you have a Rey and a redeemed Ben Solo who are facing against this greatest enemy and are struggling to defeat him, how amazing would it be to have that Force ghost of Anakin Skywalker return to actually go and finish the job that his son didn't do? Maybe they're with Luke. Maybe they're with Obi-Wan Kenobi, as played by Ewan McGregor. Done right, done J.J. Abrams style, it would be amazing. And I almost don't want to think about it too much because I kind of want that now. But and as I mentioned before, these are historical documents to me, so I can pass that off. But man, to bring it full circle and to have Anakin come back and be the one with the assistance of our dual protagonists that we've been experiencing with this trilogy, or at least providing some guidance, even pulling something closer to the effect of what Obi-Wan Kenobi did in, actually going back to the prequels. We can't fight a war for you. Obi-Wan Kenobi couldn't save Luke at the end, but he could give him some guidance. He gave him training. Something to that effect would just be utterly, utterly amazing. All right, let's move forward in this article from Wired. And again, going back to no retconning, Rise of Skywalker won't rewrite tongue-tied today, the Last Jedi. For those wondering if the Rise of Skywalker writer and director J.J. Abrams is retconning any big moments from The Last Jedi, breathe easy. He's looking at the project more as a cinematic relay race than a chance to restore his original vision. I never found myself trying to repair everything. I think we covered this on a previous show. If I had done 8, I would have done things differently, just as Ryan would have done things differently if he had done 7. But having worked on a television series, I was accustomed to creating stories and characters that were run then by other people. If you're willing to walk away from the thing that you created and you believe it's in trustworthy hands, you have to accept that some decisions being made are not going to be the same that you would make. And if you come back to it, you have to honor what's been done. He is, however, repairing at least one thing, Kylo's helmet, the visible crack, inspired by, and J.J. Abrams said this, by Japanese pottery to signify his emotional journey he revealed. Oh, and he also talked about bringing Palpatine back for the final movie as well. I don't know how many books where the last few chapters have nothing to do with what came before, he reasoned. So I'm in the middle of watching the movies in order. If you watch one a weekend, including Solo and Rogue One in chronological order, you will be watching The Last Jedi on the Saturday before that Thursday night debut of The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, my mind just was drawn to attention because I just saw a tweet where AMC Theaters, who is listing now times for the movie that'll be going on sale on Monday for The Rise of Skywalker, that the movie is currently listed at a 2-hour and 35-minute runtime. Holy moly. All right, it's getting real. It's getting real, people. Okay. But getting back to what I was saying a moment ago. I'm in the middle of my marathon journey to The Rise of Skywalker and watched The Phantom Menace this past weekend, and I'm going to be watching Attack of the Clones probably tomorrow night. Actually, it'll be tonight, on Saturday night. I'm really looking forward to it, by the way. I love doing this. I've done this. I did this for both The Force Awakens and for The Last Jedi, and I just think it's a ton of fun. So be that as it may, I'm going to be taking a break from watching The Last Jedi. Why am I bringing all this up? Okay, I'm bringing all this up because I did watch a portion of The Last Jedi the other day. I had some time to kill before I had to head out, and really wanted to watch the sort of the point from after Rey leaves Ahch-To when Luke sits down with Force Ghost Yoda, and then through the supremacy and the Holdo maneuver. I will say this, the whole reason I brought it up. Knowing that Palpatine's returning in The Rise of Skywalker, not yet knowing what his role behind the scenes has been in 7 and 8, has already enhanced my viewing experience of a movie that I already adore and love and think is a masterpiece. Watching the throne room scene, thinking Palpatine's out there in the background, what is going on is with Snoke when he's taken out by Kylo Ren, I just find so intriguing. Like, already just having Palpatine on the poster and knowing he's in The Rise of Skywalker connects this sequel trilogy to the original trilogy even more so than it did before. And certainly going back to the prequels. I mean, that was something watching The Phantom Menace, that experience was already elevated for exactly the same reason. And I keep saying it, but I'm so excited to find out how they are going to play this last story out, especially when it comes to Palpatine and what he's been doing this whole time and his involvement in the sequel trilogy that we have not seen. All right, switching gears to a couple other things before we get back to The Rise of Skywalker. In this Wired article, The Mandalorian is a Star Wars lead unlike any other. What makes The Mandalorian, the first live-action Star Wars TV series, stand apart from the animated shows and movies? According to the director and executive producer Dave Filoni, it's the title character himself. The show is dealing with a character that, to me, he's a bounty hunter. He's on the edge of things himself, he said in an interview with IGN. I think what's unique about the Mando is that he's basically a guy that's trying to make a living in the galaxy. He's a survivor, and he's just trying to find his way on a day-to-day basis. I think that leads to very interesting character moments and stories for him that are apart from some things we've seen in the Jedi deal with more directly. He comes from a different angle because he's a different type of character than they are. So they also released the air dates for Season 1 of The Mandalorian. So it will start on Episode 1 on November 12th. So looking at my calendar, that is a Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we'll get the first episode, November 12th. And then, just a few days later, on Friday the 15th, we'll get Episode 2. And then every consecutive Friday, all the way up to December 18th, okay, we're going to get another episode. These are all 8 episodes of Season 1 of The Mandalorian. So you'll get an Episode 6 on Friday, December 13th. And then you're going to get Episode 7 on the 18th of December. All right. So with that happening on the 18th of December, that's the Wednesday right before the debut of The Rise of Skywalker. So something tells me that there's going to be a big push. And I would not be surprised if, for some reason, and I have no idea what it would be, but if Disney's going to drop an episode of The Mandalorian that takes place, okay, 7 years after Return of the Jedi, so that's, 20-some-odd years before The Force Awakens. They're going to drop an Episode 6 leading into the last 2 episodes. No, I'm sorry. They're dropping the second to last episode to The Mandalorian the day before The Rise of Skywalker opens up. Tell me that's not ripe for some connection. I don't know what it would be unless it's something that has to do with Palpatine. Perhaps there's something in there that leads to sort of, at that time, rumors going around about Palpatine or Snoke, or I just, that seems way too, unless they're just going to surround that episode with the Rise of Skywalker promo, which is possible. But if they did write into the story something, I mean, that's crazy to think that they're going to drop the second to last episode of Season 1 of The Mandalorian, which obviously is going to be a big episode because they're going to want it to lead into the final episode of the season, which we then won't get until the 27th. So they're going to give The Rise of Skywalker some breathing room. Or actually, just going to give it a week. So just a week. So we'll get December 18th, which would have been the episode that ran on the 20th. They backed it up, right, to the Wednesday before The Rise of Skywalker. And then the following week on the 27th, we'll get the season finale of the Mandalorian. My gosh, we're getting so much Star Wars. I'm so happy. It's going to be such a great couple of months. I love October. It's a holiday season for me, man. Once we're into October and Halloween time, it's the holidays. That's just how that works. All right, where else do we want to go? One more here, and I think I may have mentioned this last week, but if I didn't, the Obi-Wan TV show has found a director. It's been officially announced that Deborah Chow will direct the still untitled Obi-Wan series for the streaming service. It was also announced that Tony Gilroy, who came in to assist the final production work on Rogue One, is being brought in for the Cassian Andor series. In a statement accompanying the announcement, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy said, we really wanted to select a director who is able to explore the quiet determination and rich mystique of Obi-Wan in a way that unfolds seamlessly into the Star Wars saga. Based on her phenomenal work developing our characters in The Mandalorian, I am confident, absolutely, Deborah is the right director to tell the story. The series is going to be written by Drive screenwriter Hussein Amini, with Chow, Amini, and star Ewan McGregor serving as executive producers alongside Kathleen Kennedy, Tracy Seward, and John Schwartz. I know we're going to have a long break before saga movies, but man, we're going to get a lot of Star Wars content. All right. Entertainment Weekly. The Rise of Skywalker strives to give a cohesive ending to all 9 films. Endings are the thing that scare me the most, admits J.J. Abrams, which means co-writing and directing The Rise of Skywalker must have been at least a little terrifying. I didn't plan for this to happen this way. I kind of wish I did, but it has sort of serendipitous. It's been very serendipitous the way this has worked out. But I am in the process right now of finishing book 3 in my EMBARK series. Don't worry, I'm going to do the full ad at the end of the show. I'm not going to do it now. It is available on Amazon.com. You can search for it by EMBARK, Jon Justice. See, I told you I was going to wait until the end of the show. But I'm in the middle of writing this third chapter in the opening trilogy of these stories. And I'm really getting a kick out of it. I really am enjoying it. All this hype around Star Wars and the information that we're getting and the creative process is really, really inspiring me in crafting this last story. I get what J.J. Abrams is saying here, though. I know the things that have to happen in my particular story in order to reach the end, and it really is sort of all right, here's a story I'm going to tell. I've got to kind of throw everything out there in the story to get everything moving in a certain direction, and then I'm going to have to bring it all back in at the end and then drive the ending home and make sure that everything is all nice and tied up. I'm not working on 9 films and 40-some-odd years of mythology. I'm working off of, 2 books and, 5 years of creative writing, essentially. But I can totally understand where J.J. Abrams was coming from and the responsibility that is on his shoulders. I can't imagine what kind of pressure that gives him. Nothing near to what I'm experiencing. I'm enjoying the process very much. I don't have to worry about billions upon billions of dollars riding on how my books do. There has arguably been never a film tasked with wrapping up more stories that span longer cinematic time period than Skywalker. The film not only finishes J.J. Abrams' Disney-produced trilogy launched in 2015's The Force Awakens, but also George Lucas's 6 previous episode films that began in 1977. So that's 42 years of blockbuster sci-fi adventures somehow concluding in one film. This is about bringing this thing to a close in a way that is emotional and meaningful, and also satisfying in terms of actually answering as many questions as possible. This is what J.J. Abrams said to Entertainment Weekly in its November issue. So if years from now someone is watching these movies, all 9 of them, they're watching a story that is as cohesive as possible. That said, Abrams noted that in writing the film with Chris Terrio, the filmmaker left the room for inspiration and the unexpected. While there were many things that were planned for and discussed, George Lucas himself said he created this. He saw it as 3 3-act plays. That doesn't mean there isn't discovery. That doesn't mean there aren't things that come up and make you realize, oh, here's an opportunity, adds Abrams, who returned to helm the final Skywalker chapter after directing The Force Awakens in 2015. It also doesn't mean that there's a list of payoffs that we have to do because of setups. But we also were very much aware that this is the end of a trilogy and it needs to satisfy. We went into this thing knowing it has to be an ending. We're not screwing around. If Skywalker didn't have enough to handle in its narrative galaxy, the film is also bringing back Billy D. Williams for the first time since 83's Return of the Jedi, the late Carrie Fisher's beloved Leia Organa, repurposing previously unseen footage from The Force Awakens, and Ian McDiarmid's sinister Emperor Palpatine. All right, before I expand upon this, let me get to the next article that came out earlier this week from Entertainment Weekly, and we're just going to kind of flow right into it. Daisy Ridley is aware of fans Rey and Kylo Ren shipping and has some new things to say about how their connection will be handled in the final Skywalker film. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker star was asked about the ambiguous relationship between her heroic rebel and Adam Driver's villainous First Order leader. The two are not entirely enemies, not certainly friends. They don't seem to be attracted to each other, says you. There's just a lot of kind of hard to pin down tension floating around that led to all sorts of speculation, debates, and romantic fan art. Ridley said, "It doesn't bother me. People writing theories. It's fun. It's really fun hearing them. Plus, because I know what's sort of going to happen, I think it'll be really interesting to see people's reaction to the final film. Obviously, there's this whole Reylo thing, and some people are very passionate about it, some aren't." Ridley hinted that the seemingly romantic connection isn't left unaddressed by director J.J. Abrams in The Rise of Skywalker. She added, "J.J. does deal with it. It's a very complex issue. People talk about toxic relationships and whatever it is. It's no joke, and I think it's dealt with really well because it's not skimmed over." Now, they go on to say the two previous Star Wars trilogies have featured romantic relationship among its core characters, Han and Leia in the original trilogy, and Anakin and Padme in the prequels. Rey and and Kylo are, again, much easier to define and more conversational as well. Some have objected to speculation that Rey could be destined to redeem Kylo like Luke Skywalker redeemed his father, saying that would reduce the trilogy's powerful female lead to a storyline about saving an evil man, and be a bit repetitive as well, the article says. Others point out that redemption is part of the Star Wars saga and what it has always been about. One way or another, we'll find out when Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is released on December 20th, according to Anthony Bresnikan, who contributed to this particular report. One more story, and then I'm going to provide my commentary. Okay? This comes from Star Wars News Net. Back on June 18th of 2013, J.J. Abrams, Star Wars Episode 7, will have a central love story. Abrams spoke with French newspaper Metro News and talked about his high opinion of screenwriter Michael Arndt, and also revealed a tiny part of the story for the upcoming movie. Abrams said that he was trying to get screenwriter Michael Arndt to work with him for months before realizing that they would be teaming up on Star Wars Episode 7. Now, of course, that didn't end up taking place, right? Michael Arndt was going to write the script. J.J. Abrams was going to direct it. Michael Arndt took too long. J.J. Abrams ended up writing it along with Lawrence Kasdan. Okay, so this was all before that. It's funny, says J.J. Abrams, because I have admired screenwriter Michael Arndt since Little Miss Sunshine. And these last few months, I've been suggesting he work with me, and he kept saying, I can't, I'm already working on something. And then one morning, I read that he was doing Star Wars, and I finally got it. The 46-year-old super producer was careful not to give too much away about the hotly anticipated film's plot, but revealed there will be a central love story. Quizzed about the possibility of on-screen romance, he said, no doubt, even if I already know what I want to approach this project in a different way, we're only in the initial stages of making the film, and it's difficult to talk about it other than saying it's very exciting. All Star Wars movies have a love story, so this doesn't come as a surprise. The question is, what part of the whole plot will be connected with it? I hope not much, said the article writer from Star Wars News Net, coming from Star Wars News Net. Why does that last comment not surprise me? That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, so after all that, why did I bring all of it up? I brought all of it up because I wanted to talk Reylo for a minute. I did a show a while ago now, and I worded it this way: if not Reylo, then what? Okay? I think Reylo is popular because Rey and Kylo and Reylo work well together in saying Reylo. Now, don't furrow your brow and don't tense your, don't start typing away on the keyboard just yet. Hear me out. Okay? That's a very, very small, teeny, tiny part of it. You know, it's not unlike marketing, right? Things work when things roll well, when they sound well, when they combine together. You know, Brad Jelena. The list can go on and on and on. The Reylo thing, I think, spread further because of that one little tiny detail. Reylo works really well when you combine those two words together. Okay. That's a teeny tiny part of it. The real part of it is why it works, is because that's what these two stories have been about. And, if you don't see that, that's fine. If you see something else, that's fine. I try to look at the whole picture. I love all of Star Wars. I love the emotional element of it. I love the mythology element of it. I love the fantasy. I love the sci-fi. I love the vehicles. Okay. Sometimes I gravitate towards one more than another, especially when I'm waiting for a new film to come out and I don't have tangible storylines or plots or footage to go to. I really gravitate towards the release of the vehicles and things like that. But when you look at these first two films, and this has been debated and talked about at length, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. But again, I'm going to reiterate, if it's not Reylo, then what? Right? Those scenes were designed in The Force Awakens between Kylo Ren and Rey for very specific reasons. The way they played out in The Force Awakens happened for very specific reasons. Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, that was the core of the movie. That was the A plot, right? I mean, it's Rey going to Luke and figuring the situation out, but at the end of the day, you get two sort of culminations at the middle of this film. One, Luke realizing, how wrong he's been in isolation and how big of a teacher failure can be. And then two, Kylo Ren and Rey going on their particular journey and expanding on the connection that these two individuals have. It makes sense to me, going into the Rise of Skywalker, as Daisy Ridley just said, it makes sense to me that they do address that issue, and Reylo happens in some way, shape, or form to wrap up this trilogy, and I really think it works when you couple that with what I mentioned earlier. If you do have a return of past Jedi to go and help finish this job once and for all. That's how you tie both things up. That's how you connect the sequel trilogy to the original trilogy. The sequel trilogy, you wrap up this story of Rey Nobody's journey by giving us the dealio of who Rey is and where she came from. You wrap up this story by finding which threads you're going to pull on that bring about a conclusion to Kylo Ren's story that started back with baby Ben, who was the son of Han and Leia. And in my opinion, his redemption. Okay? But that's not all you have to deal with. That's how you deal with the closure of this trilogy, these two individuals. And I dealt with this a long time ago. After The Last Jedi was released and we knew that Snoke was gone, I was always under the impression, I'm like, man, they're not going to go into this final movie with Kylo Ren being the big bad. He's going to be Supreme Leader, but there's going to be another big bad. Somebody else out there that's going to want to usurp the power that he's now been given as another means for him to take the next step in realizing how wrong he's been all along. You know, unless that theory is true that he's been an undercover agent this whole time and his whole plan all along was to finish what Vader started because he knew Palpatine was out there and had to get to him eventually and kill him. Wow, kudos to J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio if they can pull off that magic trick. But the way that you wrap this trilogy up is you bring in the past after you've reconciled your two dual protagonists, and you bring them in to let those sins of the past redeem themselves in the failure of the Jedi that finally bring down the ultimate evil of the dark side once and for all. I think that when J.J. Abrams says those clues have been laid out there, those clues have been out there for everybody to see, right? It's not just in the other movies. It's also right there in The Last Jedi when Luke Skywalker talks about the failure of the Jedi. Okay? Let's presume for a moment that this wasn't all just, made up as it went along. I think they had an arc. And I think that arc included bringing back Palpatine at the end. And that arc also included finality for the Jedi and finally restoring this balance that the Jedi threw out of whack because of their own hubris back during the prequels. And how do you do that? You remedy those sins of the past by having those individuals who are responsible for those sins, come back and finish this job. That's how you bring everything full circle, which brings me back to this idea of a Force ghost Anakin Skywalker coming back and either assisting or directly impacting the end of this film to wrap the whole thing up. But dropping back to Reylo and those that are sitting back kind of worried about it, right? You all have to deal with it the way that you want. And I know what a powerful drug that the Reylo is. I mean, I am at my core a hopeless romantic. I want that too, for a lot of different reasons. A lot of the reasons that you guys see. This idea that, Luke said it, no one's ever really gone. And I really like this sort of translation of, if you do the one-to-one comparison between the real world and the Star Wars universe, everything is amplified, right? Including murder and death and bad deeds, right? So the degree of seriousness that we place upon the murder, death, and bad deeds in the Star Wars universe is more akin to not nearly such horrible things in the real world, which is to say that Kylo Ren has done wrong in the Star Wars universe, but in the realm of the importance that we put on those particular things when we're telling this science fiction fantasy story, translating that to the real world, they really aren't all that bad, and everybody can be forgiven for their sins. And one last point on this before we dive into listener feedback. And my last point on this particular issue, and this is obviously going to come up a lot, especially when that trailer drops and we have got a lot more information to work with. Remember, for those of you doing the podcasts, right? Your Girls with Sabers, AT Chat, your my buddy Zach and the Knights of Vader, and those that. And other people that are on board with the Reylo part of it. We are a minority when it comes to the Star Wars fandom. I think it might have even been Zach who said this. Somebody said this recently on the podcast, and it was really brilliant. We're the minority of Star Wars fandom, which is interesting, too, because when you say that, it really does go and diminish sort of that negative aspect of it. Because if the hardcore fandom doing podcasts and listening to podcasts is a minority of the individuals going out and seeing Star Wars films, then it really does reduce the negative backlash to an even smaller group, okay? The vast majority of individuals that go see Star Wars are casual fans. They own the films, probably go see them maybe once or twice in the theater, and that's it. I can say that as a Marvel fan like that. I don't listen to Marvel podcasts. I don't go to the Reddit Marvel page. I see a movie once in the theater. If I like it enough, I'll see it a couple times. I did with the Avengers movies. And then I own the Blu-rays and I watch them at home. I am in the majority of Marvel fans, but yet I'm in the minority of Star Wars fans who go to Reddit every single day and more than once a day, many times a day, maybe once an hour, who do podcasts, who listen to podcasts. Why do I say all this with regard to Reylo? Because remember them wrapping up the story. They're going to be way less concerned with us and more concerned, and they're going to be prioritizing putting out the best product they can. So why is that a bonus for, because I know there's probably people out there that aren't a fan of Reylo hearing me say that, going, well, to me that sounds like an argument against Reylo. No. I'm going back to my original comment when I started this little diatribe, and that is, if it's not Reylo, then what is it? I'm sorry, you are really going to have to tell some incredible story and do some amazing storytelling and dialogue and whatever if you're going to bring the end of this saga down to the death of Kylo Ren, and then that's it. I mean, I could maybe see a chance where he gets redeemed and died like Vader, but we've already done that. If Kylo Ren were full-on bad guy and he was going to get taken out, I mean, then really what is the point? And so to me, remembering we are the minority of the fandom, what's the vast majority of individuals going to see these films going to want to see? And personally, I think it's a combination of what I mentioned before. It's a resolution of this connection between Rey and Ben Solo, wrapping up that whole dynamic and tension and finger touch and loving, and then the sins of the past remedying themselves to play a part in the final battle and destruction of the ultimate evil of the dark side in Palpatine. All right, let's dive into listener feedback this week. Let me see. I'm not prepared for listener feedback because I've got all my list of audio I need to play. Here we go.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
And that's you. It's always you, because you email me at TalkShowNerd@gmail.com and you leave comments on YouTube, and I so very much appreciate it. All right, first comment comes from a friend of the show, Howard Kemple Jr. He says, "Hey, John, I remember you had asked what's up with Kylo's helmet. While I was at my friendly neighborhood Target on Triple Force Friday, I overheard one of the Target team members talk about how he heard of an interview with J.J. Abrams about Kylo's helmet and why he just didn't get a new one. The helmet is symbolic of Kylo/Ben being broken and torn. And he's torn between the dark and the light and on what to do. Now, I've been too busy to research any sources myself. Have you heard anything like this? I think it sounds plausible." Well, yeah, we mentioned earlier in the show that J.J. Abrams had come out and basically, I forgot the exact name, and I don't want to get it wrong, and my computer's not set up to go and look, but the Japanese art form of breaking a vase and then putting it back together again. I take issue, and I mean this in the lightest of possible ways, but I take issue when people throw the criticism out at the content creators for Star Wars in, well, that was just done to make more toys. Or, I know they just brought the helmet back so they could put the helmet back on Kylo Ren and sell more toys and blah, blah, blah. And I've gone down this road before, but I just wanted to mention it again because I would like to seriously know if that ever has legitimately happened in that way. Has there ever been a circumstance wherein the content creators said, well, let's bring the helmet back because we can sell more toys, or let's bring this back so we can sell more toys? I just have a hard time thinking that that's how this content gets created, right? I think there's story beats and story ideas, and then they happen to lend themselves to the ability to go and market it again. That's just me, though. People say that, and it's such a broad assumption. There's so many things within Star Wars that can be marketed. It's a very easy criticism without any evidence to go and lob. And I just kind of think it's unfair. Howard goes on to say, as for the hate of the previous week, continue to be the authentic Star Wars fan podcaster that you are. Whether you're a 4-year-old watching Star Wars back in '77 like myself, yep, one year younger than me, or a younger fan enjoying your podcast this late in the Star Wars saga, I'm sure I speak for the rest of us when I say we enjoy your authenticity, whether we agree with you or not, and may the Force be with you always. Very respectfully, Howard. Thank you thanks a lot, Howard. I really do appreciate it. Appreciate that, and I hope you know that. The criticism and the negativity here when I do the podcast really doesn't bother me all that much. I've got a new rule where if somebody goes and writes something hateful or mean-spirited or just plain stupid or trolling, I usually give myself about 15 minutes. If I'm bothered to the point where I immediately want to respond, I pump the brakes for 15 minutes, and then I go back and revisit the comment and see how I feel then. And usually that brings about a more rational, less knee-jerk response. And the thing about this show and comments that are put up on the YouTube pages, I delete a lot of them. I just don't have time for it. I love my Star Wars too much to let individuals go and ruin any moment of it. FN1189 says, wow, I still made it, in reference to last week getting in before the podcast was over. Thank you for taking my question on such short notice. If that rap article seems a little negative or pot-stirring, I apologize. Not at all, man. No, again, we can talk, and we can talk about things and have open, honest discussions and still keep it positive. I just wanted to see what a positive voice in the community has to say, or possibly provide a rebuttal to the claim of not feeling like the end. Thanks again, John. May the Force be with you. No, thank you, FN1189. I appreciate it. All right, Arderaith says this: I want Ryan's trilogy. The depth of his storytelling was refreshing, but I honestly don't know yet if I'll even watch any of the new Star Wars films. The 9-story saga was something we watched as a family. Yeah, well, everyone's got to make a decision on what they want to do, on what they personally want to do moving forward, and that really does sort of highlight the problem that Disney is in right now with what they are going to do, and it doesn't look like Kevin Feige, as we reported. It doesn't look like Kevin Feige is going to be moving over to Star Wars. He's expanded his role exponentially within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so I do think a lot is riding on the rise of Skywalker, and the next steps that Disney and Lucasfilm take without the Skywalker saga are going to be very crucial and interesting. Brett says this: I hope the trailer comes out this Monday. It's going to. There was just, obviously, confirmation because we talked about it on the show today. However, the Force decides to move. It will be a fantastic day when the trailer drops. Thankful for another wonderful episode. Are you on Patreon? I am not. Well, okay, let me put it this way. I do have an account on Patreon. I haven't done anything with it. And I've really struggled with this. And I won't spend a lot of time here. We have a lot of other listener feedback to get into. But since Brett brought it up, I have struggled with whether or not I want to go and do the Patreon account. This show has become pretty successful. And if you've listened here long enough, I've run ads on the show beyond the personal ones that I have, whether it's helping to promote the Blaster app, for those guys, and because I use it and love that app, or it's my science fiction novels. And I often wondered, well, what if I go and set the Patreon up and allow people to go and support the show in that way? I'm still going to hold off on that. My main reason for doing the show is my pure love and enjoyment of Star Wars. I would love to see it become something financially viable in the future, but I don't need it to be right now. And I really do like the opportunity that it provides me every single week to talk about my own content creation. And so, as I always say, Brett, and I'll do the full spiel at the end of the podcast this week, if you want to support the show, then please go and pick up a copy of either of my books, and the third one that'll be out here in a couple of months, or gift them to a friend who maybe is a reader, and maybe they're not that into sci-fi, but they do like, sort of 80s adventures and romance. I really do think they'll enjoy EMBARK. If you want to support the show, that's really the best way. And I can see, too, after a podcast drops, I can go on to Amazon, and I can look at my sales, and I can see the impact that the podcast has. And so you can gift a friend the book right there from Amazon. That's how you can go and support the show. But I thank you for asking. And again, if you're a Star Wars fan, I really do think that you will love these books. They are not Star Wars. Okay, they're not meant to be Star Wars. But like George Lucas was inspired by the Flash Gordon serials that came before him, in the mythology that has been around for generations, I was inspired by George Lucas and what he did with those. So by extension, that's the connection to Star Wars. Let's see here. We go to, friend of the show, Miranda. Always has a lot of wonderful things to say. At this rate, Betty White will turn 100 years old before we get the trailer. If I can quote Snoke for just a moment, whenever I see your comments, Miranda, I always think, oh, what spunk. You truly have the spirit of a true Jedi. No, I just really appreciate your comments, Miranda. You don't hold back. I want to share something with you that I have said several months ago in a Girls with Saber video that was titled "What Reylo Means to Me." And what I said was this: it's coming from a place of passion, and it's coming from a place that I am not afraid to speak my mind when it matters. So I think I might have already answered my own question already before tuning in, even though it's very likely I can add on a little later. Why not? That is what this platform's for, right? So I guess you can say so far that these two people mean to me is their dynamic, their dynamic is having the courage to be honest with yourself in a way that can occasionally be very scary, and at the same time, it's right, because you don't feel better until you say your truth. Oh man, that I love. It's true. That's, by the way, really quick, that's really tricky too. This, at the same time, it's right because you don't feel better until you say your truth. But the thing about your truth, man, on so many levels is what's the impact? What impact is your truth going to have on other individuals, right? And even though it's going to help you, is it going to be more damaging to the other person? I just wanted to stop down for a minute. All right, Miranda goes on to say, you don't always have to like it. It doesn't always have to feel good or pleasant, but it is what it is, and you can't change, and you can't really change how you really feel or what you know is true. And I also want to add on that it does not and should not, and I will continue to fight I will continue to fight this until the day that I die and in the afterlife as well. Reylo does not have an agenda, or at least it doesn't have an abusive agenda. It doesn't have a weird gender politics agenda with the age-old girls rule and boys drool nonsense. What we are still dealing with today, I say this out loud at the risk of getting flack and being called, well, you know certain things. In addition, a certain specific individual that's been having a lot of interesting things to say about the Reylo fandom on social media out there is going to love this. Reylo is also not something that only 14-year-old hormonal adolescent obsess with for childish reasons. Reylo is for everyone, just like Star Wars is still for everyone, because Reylo is Star Wars. The Reylo things to me, well, and Miranda goes on to say this because I'm seeing she's got another comment here. I'll get to this in a second. But the Reylo dynamic is really fascinating depending on, and again, a lot of this is going to depend on how J.J. Abrams wraps this up. But to me, the Reylo dynamic and the Ben Solo and Rey dynamic, it is again more akin to real life relationships and strong relationships, not all, but a lot of them, to the real world in the Star Wars world. Going back to the Star Wars is the real world enhanced, right? Turned up. So the ramifications and the responsibilities and the actions that take place in the Star Wars universe are just very much amplified, so that the things that would be the equivalent in the real world aren't nearly as sort of egregious as they are in the Star Wars world, right? And the Reylo dynamic, you can go and you can relate to on a lot of different levels. And I won't spend a lot of time here because I have walked down this road before, but relationships are a struggle, and they are about a level of compromise, and they are about making sacrifices. And some of the best relationships and the strongest relationships, they're not perfect. You have to work at them, right? And we all have flaws. None of us are perfect. And that's what I like about that dynamic, is if they go down that road with Ben and with Rey, there's something there that says these two are meant to be together. The Force wants them to be together. They're just having to go and figure it out. I mean, and the Pride and Prejudice example is one of the best ones that you can sort of use, because I mean that's the dynamic that they're playing with. All right. Miranda also comments and says, quoting me, "You can be positive and you can be honest. You can be positive and you can be honest and still keep that positivity." And she says, "We agree. We do need to have that balance." Thank you. Jennifer Oliver, friend of the show, says, "Thanks for another great podcast. Enjoying this time leading up to the movie, but December can't come fast enough." Totally agree with that. John Dean says, "Just found your podcast, and I really liked all the Christmases filled with Star Wars toys, and I understand the Christmas morning reference. I can't wait for the trailer. Good job." Thank you, John. Appreciate that. He goes on to say, "I understand the buying Star Wars toys. My greatest and best memories are these: buying figures at J.C. Penney's and Brand Less. Last Jedi was perfect." Yeah, well, you're in a great place. ID75 says, "The clearly here we go. Forgot about this one. I left it in here. So it's AIDEY75 wrote this. The clearly unhinged appeal of mass-murdering sociopath. This whole Reylo nonsense is like just Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun, I guess. I'm actually very curious why weirdos find sick appeal in this. What sort of message is this sending to young girls in particular, I wonder?" That is, to me, and I responded to this on YouTube. You can go there and find it. I'm not going to go and quote it. I'll just sort of give you my new instinctive response to this comment. But first off, look, you can feel however you want to feel about Reylo. I do think it's a bit ridiculous comparing this to Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun. And this is my perception. Just like I mentioned, Star Wars rules don't apply to real world rules, okay? And the way that Kylo Ren's been set up, in the way that he was seduced by Snoke, and his reluctance to really take out Rey, finger touching, loving, and all of that, right? Okay, all the pieces are there. Darth Vader got redeemed in the prequel, in the original trilogy. All right, so I'm not gonna, and I can set up, and I did. I copied just like quote. I not quote, but I went and found example after example after example of when the bad villain ended up becoming the hero, right? But one of the biggest examples I gave to the other comment they made about the message sending to young girls is, well, what kind of message did Beauty and the Beast send to young girls? That it's okay to have your monster captor who goes and puts you in, who locks you up and tells you can't escape, makes you a prisoner. It's okay for you to go and fall in love with them as well. What kind of message is that supposed to send? And more to my point, who says they have to send a message? I understand content being created for specific age groups. The material that is created, right? The stories that are told in a way that appeal to certain age groups. Like, I get that. That makes sense. But there's no requirement for any of these films to be to signal or message anything. if we're raising our children correctly, if you were raised correctly, you were raised to think for yourself. Stories are just stories. You can take whatever you want from them. I mean, that's like, talking about, there are all these horror movies that are on, with Halloween coming up. What kind of messages are these movies sending about murdering people? I'm sorry. These are fairy tales. You take from them what you want. Unless you're talking about really young programming that's out there and designed to sort of help with messaging. I mean, that's what your Mr. Rogers and your Sesame Street, that's what those were there to do. These stories, there's no requirement they have to send a message to anybody. And if anything, it's the same message you get in Beauty and the Beast, right? People deserve a second chance. There is an opportunity of forgiveness in these things. Sure, the things that may be forgiven in the Star Wars universe will not be forgiven in the real world, but we also don't have ships that fly around magically. So, okay, let's move on. Let's see. Some people commenting on... Oh, Plastic Life wrote this. Not a fan of Reylo, simply because they clearly chickened out on the Finn-Rey potential romance. Okay. So, don't agree, okay, with that comment. And going back to the quote from that 2013 article, that was never part of the plan. Rey and Finn, as far as I know, was never part of the plan. JJ had a romance potentially set up back when they were looking at Michael Arndt, and I'm pretty much convinced that whole romantic relationship was not Rey and Finn. It was Ben Solo and Rey. All right. Miranda's back, and she's got this to say. One more thing I'll add on, and I'll make this quick. If you're going to come in and randomly throw shades on Reylo with the age-old, narrow-minded, fake-woke, social justice warrior talking point comparisons of a real-life dictator that did actual, irredeemable things twice as much as anyone in Star Wars, use that as a one-sided argument that doesn't hold any water and lacks concrete substance, do yourselves a favor and re-educate yourselves watching a couple of simple documentaries. They tell you more than most textbooks of Hitler, Stalin, Mao, and other actual human monsters in history, and then pick up the Snoke comment to see who the real abuser is. And it's not who you think. Just putting it out there. Oh, and take a look at my comment, too, if you want to know about what Reylo means to me. Thank you, Miranda. All right, friend of the show, Anthea Gaia says this. No trailer this week, so looks like it'll be on my birthday. And Carrie Fisher's birthday. Great birthday present, especially if we get some hints at Reylo in it. I really hope they didn't try to please everyone with the story for The Rise of Skywalker. It's impossible. I hope they went with the story that they were always going to tell. There is no way to make everyone happy with the sequel trilogy, so I don't feel like they should feel like the need to do so. With The Mandalorian, I think they will please the old trilogy fans that don't like the sequel trilogy. At least that is what I've heard from the people who aren't fans of the sequel trilogy. They are super excited for The Mandalorian. I'm excited for both. Hopefully you get to do your extra show next week. They've made us wait long enough. Yeah, they really have, man. They've really made us wait a long time. All right, let's see. Reylo Attic. I was totally reading that wrong. Reylo Attic. Double X says this. Love your video. Love you, Reylo Addict. Thank you. Let's see. Reylo Remnant writes this. Hey, John, I want to thank you for your contagious positivity. It helped propel me into Star Wars fandom while helping me sort through the fandom menace. Found you after TLJ, and you were the first Star Wars YouTube channel I ever subscribed to and are still the cream of the crop. Wow, thank you. I saw something recently I just had to bring to your attention. I was just at Disney World with my family. A Black Spire Outpost and the Star Wars Galactic Spectacular show were amazing, by the way, and are right now some of my favorite things about Star Wars. On our last night leaving Epcot, I just happened to sneak a peek inside the Disney Art Store. And lo and behold, what is hanging on the wall but a stunning Last Jedi poster painting in all its glory. Grabs Mike. You won, John. The Last Jedi is literally a piece of art. Signed Disney. Any further questions, Your Honor? Art is subjective. God bless America. Mic drop into the Sarlacc pit. Thank you very much for the comments. And that's pretty rad. That was a piece of Last Jedi art hanging on a wall, and you recognized it. That's cool. All right, so that wraps up the this show for today. And I say for today because we know that trailer is coming on Monday, and there will be a follow-up show this week. And at that point, I'll share all my thoughts on the full trailer. Also, a couple of things. Get that Blaster app. Free for your iPhone. Android's coming free for the iPhone. It takes just a few minutes to download the app. It's really, really easy to go and set up your profile on the Blaster app. The one thing you want to make sure you do, though, is go into your settings to make sure you turn everything on so you can take advantage of the full features, notifications, and things like that. Find me on there, Jon Justice. You can search for Jon Justice or My Nerd World and follow me there. I will be posting blasts throughout the weekend, and certainly that's going to be where my first thoughts and reaction to the full trailer on Monday night will be before I go and record the show on late in the morning on Tuesday. So go and download the app, Blaster app, all one word in the App Store. And even if you don't record any blasts yourself, be sure you follow me to hear these new recordings with my thoughts on there. But I really want to hear from you guys. And so do the guys over at Blaster. That's why using the hashtag TROStrailer. And if you're listening to this as the teaser trailer drop, there will be some stuff later on today as well, even though this is coming out after that, obviously after that teaser trailer that came out here on Saturday. But go and download the app, and love to hear your live comments up on Twitter and up on Blaster, and hopefully pull some of that audio and share it on next week's show. Lastly, as always, want to reach out and say thanks to the guys over at mysticalgc.com. That's Mystical Games and Collectibles. If you are in the Twin Cities area, over in Eden Prairie, this is your one stop for all your gaming needs. And lastly, again, if you want to support the show, how do I support the show, John? You obviously like Star Wars, you like science fiction. If you're a reader or you know somebody who's a reader, don't miss out on my EMBARK science fiction space opera series. Fun for all ages. My mother-in-law, who's in her late 60s, I believe, loves my books, and so does my 12-year-old and my 12-year-old's best friends. They are good for all ages, great for Star Wars fans. Inspired by the storytelling and world building of George Lucas, the mythological tales that inspired him, and the science fiction stories and movies that I grew up with and have thrilled generations, EMBARK takes you on a journey that includes a classic morality tale of good and evil, romance, and friendship. EMBARK Book 1 is set in the near future, where humanity lives in relative peace at the height of advanced flying technology. Air and space flight has created a new culture that replaces the classic American car culture. The planet adheres to a right to keep and bear arms on their custom-built flying machines. When an industrial catastrophe forces a planet-wide evacuation, the disaster gives way to the rise of an evil corporate madman, hell-bent on attaining ultimate power. Meanwhile, the young flight mechanic, Taft Guardia, along with the girl he longs to be with, the headstrong Katha Morrow, make a shocking discovery that thrusts them into humanity's fight for the future among the stars. The story continues in EMBARK Treasure in Darkness Book 2. The epic saga now has our heroes, an Earth evacuees struggling to forge a new life in deep uncharted space on a new world. When a search and salvage mission is viciously attacked by a previously unknown threat, Taft, Katha are suddenly the targets, and their friends must unravel the mystery that threatens their new way of life. EMBARK 1 and 2 do set the stage for Book 3, currently in development and coming soon. Both stories are filled with action, adventure, romance, humor, and laced with 80s, 90s, and 2000 pop culture Easter eggs. EMBARK is a fun read for all ages. Get the book in ebook, paperback, or audiobook on Amazon.com. Purchase the paperback gets you the ebook for free. Purchase of the ebooks for the purchase of the ebook gets you the audiobook at a massively discounted rate. And again, EMBARK is the perfect read while you wait for the rise of Skywalker. So head on over there right now and buy your copy today. And remember, if you've read either book and you've not left a review, go over to Amazon right now and do just that. Selling books is a difficult process, and I really do appreciate you guys helping to support the show by purchasing books. So I hope that if you've been on the fence at all, or if you've been waiting, just say, all right, go to Amazon.com right now and search for EMBARK, Jon, Jon Justice. Check out the reviews and pick up a copy of your choice for you or a friend. I will talk to you guys in a few hours, essentially. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I can't wait to see that full trailer on Monday night.
The Force will be with you, always.
My nerd world.